The whole Ezra Miller fiasco is such a shit show. As many of you are aware, the actor most famously known for playing the Flash in the Snyderverse, as well as a character in that Fantastic Beasts Harry Potter prequel series that apparently no one gives a single solitary fuck about, has been committing blatant abusive misconduct. On the set of The Flash, Miller reportedly had self-critical mental breakdowns, and just last month, they were arrested after harassing bar patrons who were singing karaoke. Then on a separate incident, Miller had a temporary restraining order filed against them after they allegedly broke into a hotel room and threatened a couple. And then they were most recently arrested again. And between all of these incidents, Miller's on-set behavior, and past infractions, we can see that Miller is a toxic presence and one that really needs to get some help. Admittedly, I don't have much to say on Ezra Miller's situation itself. When it comes to Ezra Miller's conduct, my opinion is far from being a dumpster fire hot take. I find Miller's misconduct to be deplorable. I'm glad that there are consequences to their appalling actions, and I hope that Ezra Miller tries to maybe figure their shit out. I know, nothing groundbreaking, but that's my thoughts on the subject. Yet, I'm not bringing up Miller's personal and legal trouble in order to, well, discuss their personal and legal trouble. Instead, I'm broaching the topic because I want to talk about the discourse surrounding Miller, by which I mean how so many people are misgendering them, something that has been happening a lot online. See, Ezra Miller is non-binary, and they use they-them pronouns. Pronouns that many people, whether intentionally or not, have been ignoring, like the legal speed limit in Illinois, because we all know that's the actual speed limit in Chicagolandia, regardless of what the sign says, is always 30 over. Online users have been misgendering Miller due to the fact that the actor was assigned male at birth, and that aforementioned misgendering has sparked criticism from the trans community online, who are understandably irritated by the whole debacle, myself included. And to make matters worse, some folks are criticizing trans people, the people stating that Ezra Miller's pronouns should be respected, as being part of the problem, which, wow, that is a lot, for reasons we will soon get into. And I figured that with all of this hostile online discourse surrounding Ezra Miller's pronouns, that maybe I'd use my insight as a trans person to describe why trans people's pronouns should be respected and what's the online discourse gets wrong. And yes, I get that most of my regular viewers are either trans people or trans allies, and more or less understand why misgendering anyone is a bad thing. But my reasoning behind making this video is so that people outside of my sphere can listen to a trans-inclusive alternative take to this. And I also wanted to post a video on my channel that discusses the importance of respecting people's pronouns. It's a subject that is important to me, for clear and obvious reasons. So without further ado, here we go. The discourse surrounding Ezra Miller's pronouns is frustrating, mostly because respecting someone's pronouns is a point of basic human decency. Speaking as a trans woman, she, her, I detest being labeled a man. Whenever I'm referred to with he, him pronouns, it always feels like an insult to my very personage. It hurts, even when it's on accident. While sure, I get that context is important, it doesn't change the fact that my femininity is being denied whenever someone refers to me with the he's, the hims, the misters, and the bros. Good lord, the bros. And whenever this misgendering occurs, which generally happens daily, even on good days, it is emotionally taxing and even painful. When being misgendered, it feels like my very person isn't being seen properly. It's a denial of self. And it's also rude. Like, you wouldn't go up to a cisgender man and refer to him as Miss or Mrs. for a whole conversation, so what makes you think that I enjoy being referred to as a man or a male when I am in fact a woman? Seriously, my identity is valid and deserves to be treated as such. I don't care if I quote unquote talk like a boy, I'm a lady, damn it. Please be considerate about that. Furthermore, gendering people appropriately is about respect, respecting someone's identity, respecting someone's lived experience, which admittedly sounds ironic when we are discussing the problematic exploits of one Ezra Miller. After all, Ezra Miller has been recorded and has allegedly been a part of toxic and hostile behavior, and for that reason, it might be tempting for some cis folks to gender them incorrectly. Seeing as Miller has literally harmed the physical and mental well-being of others, maybe it's downright tempting to just say, fuck it. Misgendering them isn't as important compared to all the other wrongs that they have committed. But this line of thinking is a fallacy. Two wrongs do not make a right after all. And Ezra Miller, even though they have committed some egregious wrongs, still deserve to have their identity and personage respected. To say otherwise is uncalled for. I mean, you wouldn't misgender cisgender celebrities like Will Smith or Chris Rock after they have done something wrong. And the same applies here with Ezra Miller. The parameters haven't changed just because Ezra Miller is not binary, and to misgender them anyway is a form of transphobia. And that is something that harms the transgender community as a whole. You are literally denying our identities by believing that our correct gender pronouns are predicated on our behavior, that who we are can be taken away if you perceive us as engaging in bad behavior, which is bullshit on par with the 8th episode of The Wheel of Time Season 1. It's total nonsense. Our license to trans cannot be revoked. Full stop. Trans people's identities are valid. Whether good, bad, or complicated, our existence, our personhood, isn't predicated on our behavior. We are people just like you, your parents, your barber, and your gastroenterologist, which is impressive because they deal with assholes packed with copious amounts of shit. Just like me when I read some of my unsolicited, not safe for work direct messages on Twitter, a place where my sexual appetite goes to die. Admittedly, there is another reason as to why you should respect Ezra Miller's pronouns, a rationale that actually has little to do with Ezra Miller themselves, and that reason is due to the trans people that you actively know. See, despite how you might view trans people as an insignificant percentage of the population, there are more of us than what many of our detractors otherwise believe. Due to it being more socially acceptable, more and more brave people are coming out as trans. So believe me when I say that trans people see you when you misgender folks, especially the trans people that you know. And yes, you probably do know trans people, and I get why that might surprise you. After all, you might actively believe that you don't know any transgender people and aren't close to anyone who is trans. In terms of people who have already transitioned, you'd think you would automatically know if someone you currently work with or met at a bar to have jello shots with had previously trans their genders. But that is an incorrect assumption. It's possible that you know someone who is trans yet not even know it, like someone like a classmate, a coworker, or a distant acquaintance may be hiding the fact that they have transitioned and present and identify with a gender that opposes the one they were assigned at birth. And no, you can't always tell. That's bullshit. It's absolute nonsense. Trans people are diverse and have different characteristics, and despite what people say online, you can't clock people and categorize people as trans or not trans that easily. And seeing as a lot of trans people go day to day without people realizing they are trans, the notion that you can always tell is total bunk. Just like how some people believe that Rainbow Six Extraction is a good game. It's not. It's bad. Then there are folks who are still in the closet, people who you know that are going through this brutally hard incongruence with their body and identity, but haven't stated they are trans to anyone they are close to, save for maybe a support group, and aren't ready to transition yet. People you may know could be trans, even though you don't realize it. And no, you can't tell if a closeted trans person is indeed trans, because sometimes there aren't any external signs. Take me for instance. Fun, cool, awesome, and a total dork. I love traditionally masculine hobbies like video games, heavy metal, and sports, all to the point that prior to when I came out, everyone around me thought I was a cisgender male. They were wrong, of course. I maintained my secret desire to be female under lock and key for a long time, and when I did eventually come out, my family and friends were shocked. They didn't predict it. They were honestly blindsided, because I am indeed the dorkiest girly sports fan and heavy metal connoisseur of all time. That shit's like nectar to my veins. So to get back on topic, what the fuck does this have to do with Ezra Miller's pronouns? Well, the point I'm trying to make here is that there likely are trans people in your sphere of influence, particularly closeted trans folks, that you are unaware of. And when you misgender Ezra Miller, those aforementioned trans people see that shit. They notice, and as a result, they will view you as a person that can't be trusted with their secret. They won't confide in you. They don't want to form an actual friendship or relationship with you. If anything, they won't want to be near you, because if you don't respect Ezra Miller's identity, there's basically no point in hoping that you would respect theirs. Your words and actions essentially push trans people away, and I know this because I was once a closeted trans person myself and used how others talked about famous trans people in order to gauge whether or not I wanted to reveal to them that I was trans. In fact, how others discussed out trans people allowed me to guesstimate how safe I might be if I told them I was trans, which is a thing that closeted trans people do for their own protection. And when people misgender Ezra Miller, those aforementioned people basically spotlight the fact that they are not safe people to be around, that they likely aren't someone that a trans person should be close friends with. Last but not least, I want to address a certain criticism, the one designating those of us who are upset with the blatant misgendering of Ezra Miller online as prioritizing Miller's gender pronouns rather than the real-world harm that they have caused. I want to point out the criticism where people think that our priorities as trans people are skewed, but this argument misses one key thing. It misses the concept that two things can be fucking true at the same fucking time. Here's a few examples. Shoes are good to wear outside, but aren't as necessary inside. Ice cream is great, but it shouldn't be a pizza topping. And finally, Ezra Miller is abusive and potentially dangerous, but their pronouns should be respected. This is not fucking rocket science. It is the bare minimum. Two things existing at the same time. Get your shit together, internet. So yes, respect Ezra Miller's pronouns. It doesn't matter that they have committed some egregious wrongs. Identity should be respected no matter what. It's not something that can be taken away, and the trans people that you know will ultimately be grateful for that. We will see it. And with that, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment telling me what you think of this whole shit show. Also, please consider checking out my Patreon page. $1 a month gets you onto my Discord server, and $5 a month will allow you to start making review requests. The link to my Patreon is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, particularly my high tier ones, and David, Samantha, Devlin, Mom, and Morgan. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.